All right, everybody, welcome into episode 116. It is February 6th, 2024. Happy Super Bowl week here in the United States. I'm Nick Hill, live as always from Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States. And joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, doing good. Happy February. It's out this weekend is Carnival weekend. I guess in America only New Orleans have that kind of you
Yeah,
know
Mardi Gras.
yeah. Like it's so funny in Brazil. So basically, Carnival is like Mardi Gras, but not restricted to New Orleans area. It's basically the whole country. So yeah, but definitely in the United States of America, it's all about the as a lot of news stations have to call the big game. And but I guess here we can call the Super Bowl 58, which is gonna be in Las Vegas, Nevada. But before getting to some Super Bowl talk, something excited just broke in today about the NFL and the game that we talked a lot last month because the I was actually wrong. The home team of the Brazil NFL game, which is going to be played, which was predicted to be played in the first week in September, is not the Miami Dolphins. It's actually the Philadelphia Eagles was selected by the NFL to be the host team of the Brazil game, which they're gonna take place September 6th, which was a great day actually because it's the day before Independence Day in Brazil. Even though it's going to be a Friday game and still a little half-ish holiday, it was a nice day to pick up a Friday game, uh, which is going to be nice. So I guess now we know for sure that the Titans are not going to be traveling to São Paulo. Sadly,
Yeah,
the
so no
Titans.
News 12 reports from Sao Paulo.
Yeah, sadly, no
Hey, if the
I mean,
Falcons go, maybe I could finesse. Well, to be fair, not a lot of people care about the Falcons around here.
yeah,
I gotta be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. So the teams that might come to Brazil are, of course, the NFC East, rivals of the Philadelphia Eagles. They Washington Commanders, Dallas Cowboys, and New York Giants.
Don't
But
think it'll be
also,
any of them.
yeah, I don't think it's going to be any of that. Maybe Dallas Cowboys because it's a big brand, but
No,
I
you
doubt it.
can't take that game out of Philly. They
Yeah,
would beat
that's
me
true.
because this is the got to think about this. You can't do a home and home because like if Philly has to go to Dallas, but then Dallas doesn't have to go to Philly, like that's unfair to the Eagles.
Yeah, I guess, and also from what we see in international games, the NFL doesn't want to pick the divisional game from divisional games from international games. Only if you're Jacksonville, then maybe. So the possible teams are the Atlanta Falcons. So you joke about it, but so there's a chance of the Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers, Green Bay Packers, which I think it feels like the best candidate because of all the brand, and Jacksonville Jaguars, maybe also because
I would
Jacksonville.
say Packers. I think Packers because those are two big teams. I think that's a good way to introduce yourself the to Brazil. Now, granted, Atlanta, as you've said in the past, is a big Brazilian population. Uh, So you could justify that. Now we have to think about this too. It's going to be a Friday in early fall, which means this is going to be as football season, high school season's going on. And the reason why the NFL is even getting away with doing this is, in the United States, I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a rule that the NFL, if there's a high school game going on within 75 miles of an NFL stadium, the NFL cannot play a football game. That's what the
Really,
NFL does.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and also college too that apply. So NFL or college game
Hmm.
within 75 miles of NFL stadium, they can't play on a Friday night or on a Saturday. That's why you
Uh-huh.
don't see those games on those days until late in the year because they
Oh,
want that rules in effect to protect high school and college sports from the NFL. However, since this is in Brazil, you don't need that rule. That rule doesn't apply technically.
I guess if somehow it's gonna be some high school soccer tournament. I guess I'm joking. He's gonna. There's
Hey,
probably not
two
even.
football teams are going to move down and play their game in Brazil too. They're gonna go, if we're playing what the Palmeiras Stadium, correct, or is it
No,
different?
Corinthians could definitely Corinthians Stadium right now, because Palmeiras Stadium, as I'm going to discuss later, is not even able to receive soccer games, and nonetheless football games. It's going to be at Corinthians Stadium, known as Neoquímica Arena or Big Itaquera, or I mean, the stadium was more designed for international games. It hosted the opening of the 2014 World Cup, also 2016 soccer games, so was bound to be Corinthians Stadium. Also, granted, Corinthians Stadium has a big parking lot, which Palmeiras, São Paulo Stadium, Maracanã, all those stadiums does not have. Corinthians Stadium probably has the largest own parking lot. So there's going to be able to be so the only stadium that will be able to be tailgates is Corinthians Stadium. So that's probably why the logic of it.
I cannot
And
wait for Brazilians to be introduced to tailgating.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pay. I'm gonna be there. I know for sure. I'm gonna be, as much. I'm gonna save as much money as I can, or do as much as I can to be there to experience Brazilians to the NFL world. Of course, the NFL audience in Brazil has grown really large in the last, I'll say, 13 years. Of course, because of the expansion of cable, and more Brazilians have access to ESPN, which has broadcast NFL since mid '90s, and probably there's going to be a lot. There's of course there's going to be some Brazilian Eagles fans, but there's going to be all sorts of fans. Cowboy fans, Packers fans. You name it. I'm a Jets fan. I'm going to be there. So, and the first time the NFL has played a game on a Friday night of week 1 in over 50 years. The last time, I mean, you probably mentioned, I guess, the last time they were able to do it or get around was when the Rams, I guess back then was the Los Angeles Rams, hosted the Arizona Cardinals on September 18th, 1970. So 50 years of last time an NFL game has been played on a Friday night on week 1. Roger Goodell said this is a landmark first international game in South America, demonstrates the outgoing expansion of our global footprint. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to feel that. According to the NFL, there's 38 million sports fans in Brazil, and probably Brazil has probably like I'll say 2 million NFL fans, so probably going to be a sellout game, and it's going to be a lot of excitement. So that's why I have to break this news before even we talk about the NFL, because us Brazilians are already thinking about the 2024 season. Look, even Luis Gustavo Fôlego says Jets fans. So, você vai estar lá, Luiz, no jogo do Eagles em setembro na Arena Corinthians? I asked him in Portuguese, of course, if he's going to be there, because he went to the opener of the World Cup in 2014. He says, like, I guess he wants to say, like, that he wanted, Brazilians wanted this for years, and we're excited. Let's see what team is going to be playing.
Is he blaming the show Wonder Years for it? Because I think it wasn't the kid on there a Jets fan.
What? Sorry, yeah, he's a Jets fan.
Yeah, so I think he's blaming the show. Also, shout out
Yeah.
to Elaine Barbusso. Hi, Gustavo.
Oh, my girlfriend. Oh, yeah. And I want to take her too. I said to my beautiful girlfriend Elaine that I definitely want to be there with her, take her, because I will show her what is a little bit of American sports feeling. So I am definitely taking her to this NFL game, and her family actually lives like 25 minutes from the stadium. So I don't even need a hotel after the game. I can just go to sleep on her family, in Guarulhos, which was like a 25-minute drive. I don't even have to find parking, so we're good. So I'm excited.
That you cannot beat that.
Yeah,
Cannot
can't
beat that at
beat
all.
that. Yeah. So and he says, Luis Gustavo Folego says he hopes to be there like me to experience the NFL in São Paulo September 6th. So it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles hosting. We're going to find out later in the year. But now let's focus on the big game on Sunday.
Yep, the big game, the Super Bowl. Please don't sue me for saying Super Bowl NFL. It is Super Bowl 58 in
First of all,
Vegas.
it's so stupid that networks have to get around and saying the name. I mean, it's so archaic. I mean, everybody calls it that. I mean, there's I want to find like there's got to be some archaic rule that you have to get around and say the big game, or maybe because I guess because you cannot promote using the name because the NFL is the only one allowed to.
Yeah, I mean, when you're the NFL, like the Super Bowl is, it's just they just have it trademarked. Like, and when like you're able to trademark anything, the PTO office just recognizes it. You can do whatever you want with it, and they charge big money for you to be able to say the Super Bowl. So
But I
it's
guess But I guess, like for example, ESPN, they talk and other sports shows talk. I guess you cannot like promote it using it. I guess.
oh for sure, and I mean all the NFL partners can say it.
Yeah.
So that's why pretty much every major network can. But like you'll see like a lot of a lot of stores be like, we have TV sales for the big game. I have to wonder, like, do people really just buy TVs just for the Super Bowl?
Mm. I guess it maybe in the past it was like the World Cup. A lot of electronic companies like Sony, um, other big brands would wait until the World Cup to promote their biggest TV or the biggest appliance, so you can watch it because everybody wanted to have the best gadget to watch. I guess now with so many options, especially with mobile devices, is not that big of a trend. I guess there's some people maybe, but not like in the past where you wanted to get a new TV for the game.
Absolutely, and I do think part of it's a marketing gimmick, and of course, really, the Super Bowl, in all honesty, is one large commercial, right? Like and when we think about the Super Bowl, right before we even get into the game, right, there's so much that goes into the Super Bowl because this should be a national holiday in America. The Monday after the Super Bowl should be just a straight up holiday. Like this is basically the closest thing we have to New Year's Eve throughout the remainder of the year. I mean, this is the day that people go stupid crazy because it's a Super Bowl, right? Like we want to eat pizza, want to eat wings, want to drink beer. Like that's what a lot of people do on Super Bowl Sunday. Um, you know, what was like when you were in America? Kind of like what were like your like favorite food for Super Bowl
I
Sunday?
remember my first Super Bowl that I watched United States of America was the Patriots and Seahawks Super Bowl in February 2015. And I remember having the most American food like wings and pizza. Uh, I remember it was from Papa John's because I wanted to get the most American one. So and then one time I went on a bowling alley because they were doing some sort of a promotion. So they pay like I guess like a really cheap price to play bowling and you can watch the game. Of course, as I mentioned last week, the most memorable Super Bowl I watched was the one that completed was 7 years ago to this day. The Houston Super Bowl when I went to Atlanta to watch the you know watch party of the Falcons. So that's for me. I remember my first ever Super Bowl I watched, the Colts and the Saints. And then I remember talking on school about it. I was the only one other person who watched the game. So so now if I went schools, like I remember I was in high school 14 years ago, and only one other person in my class have watched it. If you go to like a high school now, a lot of people know about the game. Probably not as much as like soccer, but there's gonna be people. And Luis Gustavo Oligo mentioned he went to the Brazilian Super Bowl, which was the Brazilian Football League final between Corinthians and Vila Velha. So that's the closest thing. It's like the MLS Cup. I mean, people care a little bit, but it's not as big as soccer here. But yeah, so that's what a little bit of my Super Bowl, that I remember.
Yeah, my very first Super Bowl that I remember was Seahawks and Steelers in 2005. The Steelers won that one. That was Big Ben's first Super Bowl championship. And I just remember Jerome Bettis having a really good day that day and him retiring and them making a huge deal about him retiring. He was a Hall of Fame running back for the Steelers, and that being a low scoring defensive game. Of course, the first full season I remember was the year after that led to Peyton Manning's first title in 2006 with the Indianapolis Colts. And, in terms of like the most memorable, like I know you said that your most memorable Super Bowl by far is when you were in Atlanta for 28-3.
Yeah,
20,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and for me, it was the year after in a Waffle House in Cookeville, Tennessee. I was coming back from a conference in St. Louis. And so I watched basically the entire game in a car. And in the fourth quarter, we stopped at a freaking Waffle House. And I was literally watching the end of the Eagles and the Patriots while eating breakfast.
and and it's so funny, and that kind of experience. Like when you went there were people like working there, sitting there. Like if you think about it, there's people who don't care about the Super Bowl, and like if you go to a Waffle House, that's just probably the closest thing you can see of people like not caring about the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, people traveling and people, just still living their lives like truckers. I mean, it's just really fascinating to, like, not be behind just not in front of a TV. That's probably the only time really in the past 10 to 15 years that I wasn't in front of a TV for the Super Bowl. So it was certainly interesting because I didn't really experience like the halftime show or I didn't really experience the commercials. So I was just trying to only watch the game itself. So it was really interesting. Speaking of commercials, the trend I've really noticed with the commercials this year, they've had commercials for the commercials. They are advertising their commercials beforehand.
As we discussed last week, is because it's such a high cost to be in one of those commercials. You have to really be big, elaborate production, and you want to make the best out of it. So that's why probably there's no commercials to the commercials. But it's so funny if you go back in time. I guess the last time people really remember Super Bowl commercials were during those years of the .com boom, where you had the Pets.com commercial or the Budweiser commercial.
Yeah, yeah. You think about like Budweiser. You think about I've loved some of the M&M's commercials over the years, like Snickers. I've had some good ones over the years. And I really hope because I think for a while there, a lot of commercials got really political and worried about like political correctness and stuff. And I think for a while it got really unentertaining. I think last year you started to see a move back towards more entertainment. So I believe that maybe this year's will continue in that direction. But with it being an election year in the US, I just wonder if we're going to start seeing some preachiness creep back in. Because when Trump got elected, things changed significantly. And then you had COVID hit on top of that. It was just a wreck for a minute.
Yeah, and Biden is keeping the president interview with the American broadcaster of the Super Bowl. Last year was this Fox, and there were people like, "Oh, he doesn't want to be interviewed with a network affiliated with a right wing network like Fox News." But now with CBS, it takes the magical. It takes a little bit of the magical out of it. I feel it felt big when even the president had to address the nation during this game. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time for him to do it because, like, he's trailing in polling. We have a lot of crises going on. There's a lot of people mad at him for various reasons. And you got people mad at him over Israel, got people mad at him over the border, got people mad at him over inflation, people mad at him over all three. Like there's just, I mean, it's going to be definitely a huge interview for him on Sunday as he tries to get reelected. Of course, we're not a political analysis show, but that's just as someone who's a journalist and is a political science major, this will be a more important Super Bowl interview than most, I would say.
Hey,
I'll be curious to see if Trump. I'll be curious to see if Trump counter programs it.
Yeah, it would have been a smart thing to do, and he definitely has the outlets to it. But we'll have to see if he does something like that.
Of course, in addition to all that, because we will talk about the entertainment. So first, let's talk about pregame here. Reba McEntire, country music legend, will be the national anthem singer. Be curious to see if she can come anywhere close to Chris Stapleton last year or Whitney Houston 20 years ago. Those are because Chris Stapleton last year was as good as Whitney Houston was in the early 90s. I mean, his national anthem last year was just incredible. Maybe the best I've ever heard. Additionally, we have Post Malone singing "America the Beautiful," which is going to be really interesting. I'm really interested to see how that sounds. Of course, Andrea Day will do the "Lift Every Voice and Sing," which is still very controversial. Of course, the Black national anthem. I mean, you know, you can get if you get mad over that, that says something about you. Just saying. But the one I'm definitely interested in, of course, it's the halftime show, and I want to actually pull up because I did a story related to this. So I'm going to actually present because I did a news story the day that Usher.
I was going to say, hopefully News 12 don't strike my YouTube channel, please.
Well, I don't think they will know.
Okay,
well, they might know, but I think it'll be fine. This is a story from like 5 months ago. So before I go into this, so the woman I mostly interview in here, she's actually a cousin of mine. And she got to teach Usher in middle school. So I'll play it. And
well, it might only be week 3 in the NFL season, but Super Bowl 58 made its halftime show announcement over the weekend. The headliner has deep ties right here in the Scenic City. News 12's Nick Hill is live as he caught up with one of Usher's former teachers. Hey, Nick.
Hey, Andrew. Roxana was the 7th grade music teacher at Dalewood Middle School in Brainerd when she met a young boy named Usher Raymond. Usher went from her student at Dalewood to a global superstar with hits ranging from DJ Got Us Falling in Love Again to My Boo. Now, Usher will get one of the biggest stages of his career this coming February. The announcement, says Edwards, makes her in the community say, yeah.
He knew what he wanted to do. He would tell me after class, one day you're going to see me on the screen, you're going to see me on the stage, I'm going to be big time. And I said, just keep working for it and you'll get there.
Roxana Edwards was more than just a teacher to Usher Raymond. When Usher gave a surprise performance at Dalewood Middle School in 2016, he made a different type of confession when he shouted her out as a mentor. Edwards says that their paths crossing had to be fate.
I just remember a time when I first started teaching that I actually had a dream that one day one of my students would be successful. I didn't have a face because I hadn't even met Usher at the time.
This stretch of Shalford Road behind me is named after Usher Raymond. This is located right in front of Dalewood Middle School. Miss Edwards knows that the students that still go here look up to Usher as a source of inspiration.
I've had so many students come to me wanting to know if I could coach them because I gave Usher just a smidgen of a little coaching session.
The announcement also excites other local musicians who hope to be where Usher is one day.
It's motivation to up-and-coming artists from right here that roam in the same streets as Usher did, maybe even the same schools and hallways, to see that you can reach the highest of heights.
Edwards says that Usher should be celebrated by Chattanooga.
For young hip-hop R&B artists, Atlanta was the scene. So I understood. And then when he finally did come back around to acknowledging that he was from Chattanooga, everybody was like, yes, he's home again.
Usher will take the stage in Las Vegas on February 11th, 2024. You can see his halftime show and the rest of Super Bowl 58 right here on News 12 because the love will be in this club that day.
I love that ending. I love that ending.
See, I don't get to do fun stuff like that anymore, man. All my stories are too serious these days. But in any case, that was a fun story. I know Roxana's going to be very excited for Sunday. Um, Now, Usher, I will admit, I'm not the biggest Usher guy. I learned, I really appreciate him more after doing this story. It's just not my kind of music, but it'll put on a show. I'm sure people that grew up with Usher are gonna be excited for it. I just wonder though, because like we saw this, in the past couple years, it feels like they're going for a lot of people who were big in like the 2000s. You know, we need to get some. I feel like younger artists, like there's another certain celebrity that's been the talk of the season. If
Yeah.
she were on stage, you know, would be the talk of it would be bigger than the game itself. Usher is, he's just kind of there.
I
It
I,
feels
he,
like.
I think he got unlucky. For, like, first of all, he definitely was very very in he really made me. He was really important in the mid 2000s. I remember the song that he released, "My Boo" with Alicia Keys, was a big hit in Brazil in the mid 2000s. "Come Closer." He definitely is an artist that I really like, but he wasn't lucky because of all the years he was picked to be in the Super Bowl halftime show. Probably this is the first that the artist that is going to perform that is not going to be the artist talked on the Super Bowl week or the Super Bowl day. That's probably got unlucky because everybody talk about Taylor Swift there. Taylor Swift is, and you know he's definitely
Especially
going
with
to be.
her announcing a new album at the Grammys this past Sunday. The Dead
Yeah.
Poet. Well, the Troubled Poets Society, I think is what it's called, which I'm definitely excited for. But at the same time, it'd be hilarious too. What if, like, during his performance, they cut to Taylor Swift's box?
Or even the NFL be like, "Hey Taylor, can you do one song with Usher?" People would go nuts.
Okay, I don't know what song of Taylor Swift's would mesh with Usher. I mean, maybe she could do like Bad Blood, maybe because she did that with Kendrick Lamar. So
Yeah.
maybe you could do that. But otherwise, I don't know what else you could put that would make
They,
sense.
oh, they'll find a way. They will find a way, but
It's like when they
and
tried to put together Bruno Mars and Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like those two don't. I love both artists. They didn't mix together.
oh, it was funny story about Super Bowl halftime show. So here in Brazil, ESPN is the one who broadcasts the Super Bowl. So, and also Rede TV, also broadcasting again like they did, since 2022, 2023 season. The one that the Rams win it was 2021, 2022, if I remember right.
21. They won the 21.
Yeah. So since 2021, 2022 season, HTV also been broadcasting in public channel, but ESPN is the main cable TV that broadcasts Super Bowl. And the year that Lady Gaga performed, the play-by-play guy at the end of her performance said, "Lady Gaga, you are ridiculous." But in America, ridiculous in the sense that she's ridiculously good. She did a great performance.
Right.
But Lady Gaga fans understand that, oh, ridiculously bad. And there was a
Ah.
hate attack on this announcer. And he was explaining, like, I wasn't degrading her performance. I was praising her performance. I was
I was
saying
saying,
that,
she had a great performance, and I believe that was the 28 free Super Bowl.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
remember distinctly one of my friends in high school, because I was a senior in high school. He was a big Falcons fan. I see him the next morning, and I give him credit for showing up to school the next day, because he knows he's going to get a lot of crap all day. And he turns to me and is like, "I enjoyed Lady Gaga's performance," and that's all he had to say about the Falcons.
That's fair. But yeah, I hope Usher does a great performance.
Yeah, but
And
I don't expect it to be Prince. I mean, Prince has the GOAT performance, or Michael Jackson, or The Weeknd, or anything on that level, or Lady Gaga, because those are some of the best ones. Like, who was last year? Last year was I can't remember who was last year. I feel because I know 2 years ago was like Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, and Eminem and I really enjoyed that one.
Rihanna last year.
That was
Rihanna.
Rihanna, and I wasn't heavily impressed. So she did it while she was pregnant. Like I have to give her credit for that, but I wasn't like impressed with her to be honest. I thought Beyonce was really good in 2011. Um,
Oh,
there's-
Katy Perry did one of the best. I remember the
oh yeah,
Katy
Left
Perry
Shark.
and the shark. The shark was amazing. I remember Katy Perry
Yeah.
did one of the most memorable ones.
Oh, absolutely. But there's been some bad ones. The Black Eyed Peas, they sucked. The Maroon 5, they sucked. So there's been some rough ones, but by and large, are usually pretty good. And we'll see where Usher lands. Oh, yeah, there's Shakira. The Shakira and Jennifer Lopez, which I don't know if I can say I enjoyed musically. I enjoyed it visually. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh, how about the debacle of Justin Timberlake and
Janet Jackson.
Jackson? Oh my
And
God!
how come Justin Timberlake never faced any repercussions, but Janet Jackson's career got kind of tarnished by that? Seriously, over a breast. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah,
We all have them.
yeah, and it was funny that if it was this year, Justin Timberlake, it was like in this era, Justin Timberlake would have been done because a lot of people would have said that he what did something misogynistic, not her.
There's an argument to be made that, like, the retrospect of an event like that is the reason why we had that later era of kind of like the cancel culture and everything. Because there were male figures in the past that did not get the criticism they deserved, and the women got punished way too harshly. And honestly, we've probably swung the pendulum back too hard in the other way. But you gotta call situations as you see fit. But in any case, though, that's a moment that America lost their mind for no reason whatsoever. But I'm excited to see what happens during the Super Bowl around the game. But as a sports podcast, as we pretend to be on Radio Row in Las Vegas, but by the way, I'll be honest, I haven't really watched Super Bowl pregame coverage in years, to be honest, because I feel like it just gets exhausting. Like there's only so many ways you can break down a football game. Just one. But we only have to do it once. So it's easier for us than people that have to do shows for an entire week.
And especially it's easier when there's like some mystery about it. Like if a player is questionable, then you can ask, is he gonna play? He's not gonna play, or who's gonna be his substitute? But when there's not like this kind of mystery around it, then you really get hard.
Absolutely. So what I want to do first, as we begin to break down this game between the Kansas City Chiefs, our AFC champions, the San Francisco 49ers, our NFC champions, I want to just go one team at a time. Let's just think about how they got here. I want to start with Kansas City. Of course, a year ago, they beat the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57, 38-35. I think everyone assumes they're a pretty easy favorite to get back here. But things didn't really go to plan throughout the season, I would say. They went 11-6, and they went through some really rough patches throughout the season. They lost opening night to Detroit. They had some really tough losses to the Eagles. And there was a while there where their offense was broken. Where
there are a lot of drops.
Yeah.
So many dropped from receivers. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney and Marquez Valdes-Scantling especially. Travis Kelce, of course, as we know, in week 3 began dating Taylor Swift. Probably started dating her before that, but that's when they went public with it. That became a huge part of the season for Kansas City as Taylor Swift. And some people began to argue throughout the year that became a distraction. That, oh my God, the Kelce, he's too focused on Taylor Swift. He's not focused enough on football. The team's not focused enough on football. They're resting on their laurels of 5 straight AFC championship appearances and their 2 Super Bowls. So they're coming into the playoffs. They still win the AFC West. Although they really didn't look impressive doing it. I really think the lowest point for them was that embarrassment on Christmas Day to the Raiders. Like, they were horrible on Christmas Day. Like, it was unreal watching them on Christmas Day in Arrowhead. And maybe how broken they were.
And maybe that loss was the trigger that they needed to get back on track. Maybe, there's a saying, there's some losses that turns up to be really good down the road.
Yeah, and honestly, they got it together. finished the season strong, won the AFC West, which was a dumpster fire this year. We have to acknowledge that their division was not very good. If they were in like the AFC East, this could have gone much further south for them. But they were lucky they were in a bad division because the Chargers stunk this year. The Broncos are still a dumpster fire, and the Raiders are just kind of middling right now.
I think like of course gonna have all off season to talk about this, but like the Chiefs were allowed to be not as good as they were in the past because the teams on their divisions were going through a lot of recovery and for example but now I wonder with Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers, year 2 for Sean Payton in Denver, Raiders with the now making the interim coach permanent. We're definitely going to talk about this, but the fortune the fortune favors the what is it the fortune favors.
Fortune favors the bold.
Yes. So Kansas City Chiefs, bold as they did, they won the division again.
Oh yeah, so they get into the playoffs. They get to host the Miami Dolphins in negative 30-degree weather, which I mean, no surprise to me that they won that game. I mean, Tua just had no shot in cold weather. It was a tough scene to watch. But then I think they go on the road to Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills. This is their moment to take out Kansas City at home in Western New York, and they couldn't do it. They came up short. They just blew chance after chance after chance. And, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were their vintage selves. And the defense especially came up huge at the end with a missed field goal to get out of Buffalo with that win. Setting up the AFC Championship game 2 weeks ago in Baltimore, where once again, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens have everything to prove at home and for their crowds. And the Kansas City Chiefs, with a spectacular defensive performance, got it done. And now, for the 4th time in 6 years, the Kansas City Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. I mean, to me, I think the biggest story of this team, everyone knows who Patrick Mahomes is. Everyone knows who Travis Kelce is. Steve Spagnuolo is the MVP here in that defense.
Yeah, definitely. All credit to Andy Reid, who is a phenomenal coach, and if he continued to this path, probably is going to be the debate of the GOAT coaches between him and Bill Belichick, and he can be argued that he won both defense and offense ways. But what a great turnaround! A team that was heavily offense got to the Super Bowl with a great defense.
Absolutely. And, when the Chiefs dynasty started, they weren't known for that. Like, the offense was having to win a lot of shootouts early on. But they've changed the way they've had to win. And the fact that they've done that just shows how well ran that organization is.
Yeah, it's kind of comparing the matchups between the Bills this season and the Bills when they won. I guess it was 2023, where the divisional one, when the Bills scored late and Patrick Mahomes saved the day.
Oh, absolutely. Because Mahomes is still Mahomes at the end of the day. Now, on the other side, the San Francisco 49ers, I think, a lot of people had expectations for this team. They made it to the NFC title game a year ago, and if we all remember, infamously, they ran out of quarterbacks. They lost all of them to injury, and they had to resort to Josh Johnson in Philadelphia, which it didn't work for them. And after that debacle, it was like we're all like, okay, how would that game have gone if they had actually been at full strength? We'll never know. But they come back this year, and they come out on a tear. I think throughout the first month and a half in the season, I think, especially with wins like 42-10 over Dallas, on Sunday Night Football, I think arguably they were the best team in football early on.
Yeah, how about that win? Yeah, that's true. But the big game they were questioning was the loss to the Ravens.
Oh, for sure. Like, Because they, I think, to me at least, they had some injury problems throughout the middle of the year, so they lost 3 straight games in October at one point. But they kind of got it back together once their team got healthy, and they were just running through teams. Like, they blew out Philly. They were running for the Seahawks. But as you said, the Christmas night, once again, like the Chiefs on Christmas Day would get to Christmas night as the best record team in the AFC versus the best record team in the NFC. And the Ravens went there and stopped them. Their defense made Brock Purdy look absolutely clueless, threw in 4 interceptions. And we all kind of wondered, okay, can Brock Purdy get it done in the playoffs? Can this team, despite all the talent that they have, get it done? And it's interesting when you look at the parallels between the Chiefs and the 49ers, how back on Christmas, they were both prominently featured and both, at least at that point, failed.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess both teams learned their mistakes on Christmas and got the present at the end, which is making to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. They just had a delayed gratified playoffs. And, the playoffs were not easy for these 49ers. Even though they were in 2 games where you would say they were definitely the heavy favorites. They had the 7th seed Packers, who had upset the Cowboys the week before, had to survive them, score a touchdown in the last minute, get an interception on Jordan Love. And what was a back-and-forth game? Like, they did not play well in this game, especially on the offensive end, but they did enough. They did enough to get it done. And to me, the defense especially got this one against Green Bay. But against Detroit, who, we're going to remember, Detroit jumped out to a 24-7 lead in this game. It easily could have been 28-7. I mean, it was shocking. It looked like San Francisco was going to get blown out. But then they get a couple of breaks in the third quarter. Detroit kind of goes conservative on offense, and San Francisco is able to blast their way back into the game and end up winning this thing. But I don't know if anyone would say that San Francisco's looked impressive in the playoffs doing it, but hey, they did what they needed to do, win 2 games at home, and now they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess he took, that home field advantage really as an advantage, unlike the Ravens, which really couldn't make that. And now I think it's the big test for Kyle Shanahan. He, had 2 Super Bowls, once as a coach, once as a coordinator, lost both.
Yeah, and had leads late in both.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you could arguably say that both of them are his fault that they lost. And of course, that's kind of the next question I want to ask is, the coaching matchup here. Of course, Andy Reid has 2 Super Bowls, is unquestionably a Hall of Famer. Kyle Shanahan, if he gets a ring here, I think he will start making his case for the Hall of Fame, but he needs a ring. And for Kyle Shanahan, this has been, as you said, the kryptonite. This final game right here. And I don't know if his team really is peaking right now at the right time. Can Kyle Shanahan learn from his mistakes in previous Super Bowls, including the one that we had against the Chiefs a few years ago?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm because at the end of the day, to get to the Hall of Fame kind of coach, you need to get a title. You need to, at least be on that conversation.
Oh, for sure. And, obviously both of these guys are offensive minded, right? So you also have to think about the defensive side. The 49ers have Steve Wilkes as their defensive coordinator. Of course, we're talking about Steve Spagnuolo. And Spagnuolo, I would argue, has been the coordinator of the year in the NFL. And I think he's definitely outperformed Wilkes in these playoffs. Wilkes' defense has not looked good in this playoffs. I would be concerned if I was a 49ers fan about how the Niners defense looks heading into the Super Bowl, especially what they did against Detroit. They looked awful. They looked lost in that first half against the Detroit Lions. And Andy Reid, as we know, he will take advantage of weaknesses like no one's business. But Kyle Shanahan can as well, if he can find one. And right now, I think Kansas City's defense has the clear edge here between the 2 defenses.
I'll take the 49ers defense, even though the Chiefs have the most impressive, because they were known for being more offensive team. I think the 49ers defense is solid over the years.
I don't know. Like think about this. We go back through December. They allowed 33 to the Ravens, right? They did not play well that night in Christmas. Then in against the Packers, they let Jordan Love look pretty good, look pretty confident in that game in San Francisco. Then the Detroit just went in and blasted them. And if you look at Kansas City's defense, they completely shut down Miami. They, I think, played very effectively against Buffalo, especially in the fourth quarter, and then dominated Baltimore. I think by far Kansas City's defense right now, even though on roster you could say that, yeah, the San Francisco has a much more talented roster, right? You got Chase Young and Nick Bosa as your end. You got Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw. These are superstars on the defensive side for the San Francisco 49ers. But, when you look at the other Kansas City, you have Chris Jones, you have Nick Bolton, you have L'Jarius Sneed. These are all great defensive players on both sides. And I'll be curious to see which cream rises to the top here between the defenses.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that's a great argument. It's a battle between the defense has the best improved defense versus the most consistent defense in the NFL over the years.
Absolutely. I think, in addition to Kyle Shanahan, I think the person with the second most pressure here is Brock Purdy. Because, on the other side, you have Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, no matter what happens here, we know who he is, right? He's won 2 rings.
He's going nowhere.
He's Hall of Fame already. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He's just right now, he's chasing Brady now. For Mahomes, it's about chasing Brady. Because if you get your 3rd ring at 27, now you can dream about chasing Brady, in my view. Now, I guess an argument can be made. Does the loss in 2020-21 to Tampa perhaps disqualify him from that? But I'll say this. I think Mahomes, despite the loss, played it great in that game. He had no offensive line. He was running for his life. I think he ran for something like 600 yards just trying to avoid the Bucs defense. That was not Mahomes' fault that they lost to Tampa in that game.
Oh, but that loss is kind of like the 2008 Patriots loss. It doesn't take the credit of what Brady done.
I think that's also fair as well. But I'll say this: I think Brady just played bad in that game compared to what Mahomes did against the Bucs.
But a Super Bowl loss is a Super Bowl loss. At the end of the day, there are games you play bad, but you the team won, and people remember that. I think because the Super Bowl at the end of the day is people remember the outcome, not the performance.
I think that is very true. Also for Mahomes as well, just in off the field news, he, his dad was arrested over the weekend on a DUI charge. Of course, he was getting grilled on this today at the Super Bowl, which I think that, for one, I think you should let him have his privacy on that. Because, Patrick Mahomes can't control what his family does, He can't control what his dad does. He can't control what his brother does. Patrick Mahomes can only control what he does, right? And I'm just curious, though, does this weigh on his mind at all? Or is he able to go out there and block it out and play? I think he'll be able to. He's a professional, right?
Yeah. So, but it's kind of like, people care about the outcome, not the performance. It's like if the Chief if the Chief wins, nobody will remember this episode. But if they lose, then it's because of something that Mahomes did, like an interception or a fumble or something. People then will remember that.
Oh God, or God forbid, if Travis Kelce messes up in some case. Could you imagine the reaction to that? What if the whole Taylor Swift thing would be very interesting. But I want to get back over to Brock Purdy though. Brock Purdy, remember this guy was Mr. Irrelevant, and he kind of worked his way up to the quarterback position, and he's played very well. But at times this year, and even myself, I have grown increasingly critical of Brock Purdy. I think at certain times he's a system quarterback. Yes, he can make. He's a very accurate thrower. I just think he's a very powerful thrower. He reminds me a little bit of Brady. in terms of he doesn't have the biggest arm, but like he has a really good command of the Shanahan offense. And I just have to wonder when it really gets tight here. If we get to a tight game down the stretch in the Super Bowl, can Brock Purdy make the throws necessary to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think Brock Purdy, at least now, because with Jimmy Garoppolo play got a Super Bowl. I mean, of course, he couldn't overcome his defense giving up the lead that the team built up into the fourth quarter. But definitely, if he wins the Super Bowl, then he can probably say, "Oh, I went from Mr. Relevant Super Bowl winner." But if he loses, then all this is gonna be like, he, Mr. Relevant. He started the team, but he couldn't, get the title. So then people will be wondering, the 49ers front office be thinking about all the offseason. Should we really make a big move to get a veteran quarterback and not try to find young like players like they, because even before Brock Purdy they tried with Trey Lance. The Trey Lance should have been in that position, not Brock Purdy.
Yeah, but hey, things happen for a reason. We'll see if if Brock Purdy pulls this off and wins Super Bowl. I think he'd be very similar to like a Kurt Warner. Remember, Kurt
Yeah.
Warner, undrafted out of the Arena Football League, was bagging groceries, and a couple years later, he's winning the Super Bowl. So, can Brock Purdy pull off something similar? We'll see on Sunday. So, we kind of talk about the defense, but let's talk about how the offenses match up. So, first and foremost, we're talking about how talented this Niners defense is. So, you have the Chiefs offense on the other side, not the Chiefs offense we're used to, right? Of course, we lost Tyreek Hill 2 years ago. They still have Travis Kelce, who has been back in form in this playoffs. He has been awesome in these playoffs. He had both the Bills and the Ravens game. He was a huge part of those victories. I believe he has like 3 or 4 touchdowns in these playoffs so far. And it's just he's been on fire. He's by far the best receiving target that they have. And I wonder, if throughout the regular season they were fortunate to that receivers try to make them get better, but they forgot they had Travis Kelce. Sometimes, but they have remembered that they have him, so they are going to him. And of course, this receiving core for the Chiefs, as we have talked about ad nauseum, is not very good, right? Like, the best receiver that they have, if we're being honest, is Rashee Rice, and he's a true freshman. Or a true rookie. He's a rookie. Because everyone else, Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, McCole Hardman, they're none of them are good. But Patrick Mahomes can make things happen. And I think for me, obviously, there's 2 key matchups here. Obviously, this offensive line, which I think has gotten really good at run blocking. We saw how Isaiah Pacheco has looked really, really good throughout the season, especially this postseason. Like, he is a really hard, aggressive runner. He's overtaken Clyde Edwards-Helaire as the main running back in Kansas City, and I can see why. He's really given that offense really good balance. And then 2, Travis Kelce versus like Fred Warner and Drake Greenlaw. I can't wait to watch this matchup. Like, this is going to be absolutely electric. You got the best tight end, I would argue, ever in the history of the NFL versus perhaps the most talented linebacker core in the league. It is going to be a true beast mode superstar matchup.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. Yeah, I think that too.
Yeah. So, on the other side, when we think about San Francisco's offense versus the Kansas City defense, of course, obviously we talked about Brock Purdy being your quarterback. Sam Darnold. If we just think about potential injury, right? Like, what happens if either quarterback goes down, right? So you have Blaine Gabbert as the backup for Kansas City, as we've seen in the past. He's not very good, right? You have Sam Darnold as your backup in San Francisco. I think the advantage there clearly is San Francisco if something were to happen to either quarterback. But clearly the advantage, I think, from a receiver standpoint goes to San Francisco, right? Like, Deebo Samuel, he's good to go. He had a bit of an injury a few weeks ago, but he's back with Brandon Ayuk, who had a great game against Detroit. Of course, you got George Kittle, who might be the second best tight end in the entire league. behind Kelsey. And he going up against like Nick Bolton will be a great matchup as well. And of course, the real superstar here, maybe obviously Mahomes is Mahomes, but maybe the best player on this field is Christian McCaffrey. And I can't remember the last time where we had like a true superstar running back in the Super Bowl.
Probably Ray. Probably.
Let me think, because it's been a while since we've had like a true running back, because it's such a quarterback dominated league that it's really hard.
I'm trying to think of because I remember, like, for example, I remember the Super Bowls where there was a non-quarterback, star, Ray Lewis, that Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl champions in 2013. Von Miller was the star in Denver, not Peyton Manning.
Right. Let's see. Rashad Mendenhall. No, I wouldn't say he was it. Wow, that's been a very long time. I'd argue maybe Jerome Bettis, like 2006. And Sean Alexander. Like, it's been a very long time since the running backs were the star of the show. But the star of the show here for San Francisco is Christian McCaffrey. And I think that's, something that we can't disconnect or discount, because, he will be a huge part of their game plan for sure. And I'm curious to see how Kansas City counteracts that, because Kansas City did, I think, a really good job defending the run against Baltimore. But to be fair, Baltimore elected not to run the ball for some insane reason. I still don't understand what Todd Monken was doing in that game. And I have been critical of Kyle Shanahan throughout this postseason. At times, I think he forgets he has Christian McCaffrey. And if let's say Kansas City scores early and they get behind, I would be nervous that Shanahan's going to panic and go pass, and completely forget that he even has Christian McCaffrey. So you want to know the last time a running back won the MVP?
It has been a while.
1998.
Whoa.
Terrell Davis for the Denver Broncos.
And everybody remembers John Elway on that team.
Oh, for sure. And of course, you had Emmitt Smith in 94. Otis Anderson before him for the Giants in 91. So since 1990, there's been 3. In fact, in the history of this game, you've had 3. You had Marcus Allen, 1984. John Riggins, 1983 for Washington. So that's we're at 5 right now. You had Franco Harris, 75. That's 6. Larry Csonka, that's 74 for Miami. And you have, so you've only had 6 out of the 57. So running backs don't get the love very often.
Yeah.
So in any case, Chris McCaffrey has a chance, I think, to be the most impactful running back on this game in a very, very long time. Now, we also have to think about the special teams, other factors. I think, the Chiefs have a huge advantage here because San Francisco has a rookie quarterback in Jake Moody. Or rookie kicker, in Jake Moody. And Jake Moody, he has missed some kicks throughout this season in comparison to Harrison Butker for Kansas City, who is a seasoned kicker, a really good one at that. Don't be surprised if that comes into fruition at some point later this
I think it's about details. I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl. I'm going to go ahead and also give my MVP prediction. I think it's gonna be Christian McCaffrey.
Ooh. So are you
And
going with the Niners as your champion?
yes.
All right. So I think it's going to be a really game, a really competitive game. At the end of the day, I think the Chiefs defense is going to get some turnovers off of Brock Purdy, and they're going to play smart on offense, and the Chiefs will find a way to get their third ring in 5 years. And I'm going to go a bit bold. I think Nick Bolton will be the MVP. I think the Chiefs defense has proven they've been the MVP throughout this season, and they'll find a way to get the
Uh,
defensive MVP.
So Von Miller, I think, was the last defensive player as an MVP in the Super Bowl.
Yes. So I'm going Nick Bolton. I'm going bold. I think defense wins the day here. Offense sells tickets, but defense wins championships. So we'll see who was right in this game. Now, while we're on the topic of a game in Las Vegas, I did want to bring up this. The Las Vegas mayor today said that the A's need to stay in Oakland because they are not impressed with their progress on the stadium. And said that they're basically a joke of an organization.
I mean, the MLB has to step in and maybe do some sort of intervention. Like this got it to a point that is for the good sake of the league, Rob Manfred needs to step in and do enough is enough. You either figure out the situation or you'll be relegated. I will relegate the A's. Go play in the figure out the stadium. Go play in the AAA. Go play in the AAA.
I think that John Fisher should be forced to sell the team.
Like, yeah, it should because there were sports owners who were forced to. Of course, the majority of it was incidents off the field, especially the most notorious one, Sterling with the Clippers. But at some point, you need to force to sell because of the detrimental of the sport, and that's what the A's are doing. So probably he needs to force to be sold, and new mentality comes in and really revamps this franchise, which is so historical. And I think to a point, MLB needs to step in.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's not a good look when even the mayor of the new city doesn't want you. Like normally, a mayor would be crawling on their backs and knees to get a Major League Baseball team in. They're just like, no, I'm good. You can stay in Oakland. I don't want you.
Maybe if this was 10 years ago, she would be begging it. But now Vegas has an NFL team and hosting big football events as the Super Bowl. They have indoor big sports franchise, hockey, which is literally just won the Stanley Cup.
They got to do Formula One.
They got Formula One. They have WNBA, and they might even have
NASCAR.
NASCAR.
They have everything, right? Like, and honestly, she mentioned I'd rather an NBA team than the A's.
Yeah, because the NBA will already play in a structure already created to the basketball, like the WNBA, and Vegas is more suitable for indoor sporting franchise than outdoor. There were so many historical events, especially boxing, which was indoors that Vegas hosted. Why not? I think NBA team looks like more viable than the MLB team. I think A's might look for Salt Lake City, feels like more, because Utah feels more friendly than Nevada.
And plus, I think people in Utah have less stuff to do, right? Like, I think those people would 100% gravitate more to a baseball team, because all they have is the Jazz and the Utah Utes / BYU Cougars.
Definitely,
depending on who you ask.
And I feel the Utah population is more prone to like baseball. Is not a young demographic, so I feel like
and it's very family oriented, right? Because I mean, most people in Utah are Mormons. Obviously, a lot of people get married young, they have kids young, and baseball is a family oriented sport at its core. So there's a lot of families in Utah who would love a Major League Baseball team to go support.
and we'll see. But I guess now with the biggest football event in your city, the Vegas mayor be like, "We don't need you." Literally that.
Absolutely. Hey, if you want to put butts in the seats, go to the Mormons. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
In Salt Lake. But in any case, because you're not getting it in Vegas and you're not getting it in Oakland right now. So
Yeah.
that's all I gotta say. They would, I think, put up with John Fisher. Maybe. But sell the team as always. Okay, back to NFL real quick. We have two new head coaches here. Seahawks hire Ravens DC Mike McDonald as head coach. Good or bad?
I'm gonna say the same thing for the Seahawks and the Commanders hire. Why you going for the defensive coordinators where the offensive coaches are being more successful in the league? I think this, they're going the opposite trend. It might
Okay,
work.
Oh, go ahead. Finish.
It might work. It might be a good hire, but I don't know. I feel like they went the opposite, trend that has been working in the NFL.
I mean, I have a completely different approach to this. I think Mike McDonald has been a fantastic coordinator. I think he has a great shot of being a coach, and he's entering into a very stable organization in Seattle. I think that has a very good chance of working out. I mean, nothing has a 100% chance of working out, but I think this one does. It has a really good chance of working out in Seattle. And plus, Pete Carroll's still there. He can lend his expertise as a former head coach. I really think that'll be a good fit for Mike McDonald in Seattle. Now, Washington, why in the world are you retreading with Dan Quinn, who is known for 28-3? And we just watched his defense completely crap their pants against the Green Bay Packers in the wild card. Like on the Ravens didn't lose because of their defense in the AFC Championship game. Their defense gave them every chance to win that game, as they did throughout the entire season. The Cowboys, though, that defensive performance was absolutely pathetic. And the idea that Dan Quinn's going to save Washington is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a true point, Nick. I guess one hire was better than the other. Like Seahawks went from a hire of a organization who has been being successful over the years, has built a stable defense, and why in the world you hire a coach who on their last game as their defensive coordinator saw their defensive fall apart? Because the Ravens last game of the season, you can blame the offense, but the defense did their part, but the Cowboys was the opposite. The defense fell apart at home against a young Packers team. So why in the world do you hire a defensive coordinator who literally their defense fell apart when they needed the most?
Oh, absolutely. It's just a retread hire. And Washington, new owner, same mistakes. I mean, it is what it is for Washington. You live in purgatory. Okay, let's move over to college sports because it's been a crazy week in college football. College football season is in the off season, but it feels like we're still in a battle because Tennessee and Virginia, the states, are currently in the process of suing the NCAA after the NCAA came after the University of Tennessee, claiming there were NIL violations. We said, basically, you have no right to enforce rules that weren't there. And so the states of Tennessee and Virginia have sued the NCAA. Now, there was some news that developed earlier, which kind of not great news for Tennessee. So they were requesting a temporary restraining order against the NCAA from enforcing their NIL rules, which was denied by the judge. Because basically the judge was saying, well, there's no evidence that like me restraining the NCAA from enforcing their rules would cause any damage. Because basically there's technically been no damage so far caused by the NCAA. But the judge did also add that they believed that the states would very likely win in a lawsuit, proving that the NCAA is committing antitrust violations against collegiate athletes. Because basically what this whole situation is going to come down to, there's a whole 20-page lawsuit. I'm not going to go through it all, but basically the whole situation is the states of Tennessee and Virginia are arguing that the NCAA, by trying to restrict how students can be pitched NIL, how they can get NIL, and basically they want to require student athletes to sign to a school before they discuss NIL. So basically, imagine, when you go, like when you took the job at Rio Bronco, I'm sure you discussed pay before you took that job, right?
Yeah.
Like how I discussed pay at New 12 before I took my job. Basically, they were asking you to say, okay, Gus, you can go work for Rio Bronco, but you can't discuss the money until after you sign. That's
Yeah.
basically what the NCAA wants students or these players to do. And they want the teams not to fund it, but they want private donors to fund it. It's like, you work for Rio Bronco, but the fans personally came up to you and paid your salary instead of Rio Bronco paying your salary.
At the end of the day, Nick, Clay Travis did a take that I remember vividly. Vividly, I did that before he did, so I call that. I remember vividly at WTK Rockstar Sports. You were with me. I called the NCAA the biggest socialist institution in the United States. I called that back in 2019. I was the one, mostly on radio, already talking about this now. I was already saying it's unacceptable that collegiate athletes do not get paid. There was going to be some major fallback over the years. And all the things that I talked about, remember, 2018, 2019 is happening right now. Because at the end of the day, I get what the NCAA wants to do. It wants to put a big, like a communistic country, wants to put a big shield over all collegiate athletes and put all of them in the same bowl. Football, basketball, baseball. Of course, those are the three big ones. But softball, swimming, and gymnastics and all of them. But you cannot do that, especially with over the last 30 years, how college basketball and especially college football has grown into $1 billion business. So you cannot put like a communist country block you from profit from your work and make you even plan. You just cannot do that. So they're just stopping progress, and you cannot stop progress. Probably what I'm worried about, and I understand what probably a lot of collegiate athletes that are not football and basketball players are worried about is if this shield is broken, what's up for them? Because basically, then college football will be privatized because then football players will be like, hey, I want to be compensated. And maybe, like Clay Travis said, there's going to be a CBA for college football, CBA for college basketball. There's going to be some sort of salary cap and rules, but there's going to be compensation. And this compensation money is going to come from somewhere on those universities. And they're going to take that money. There's going to be compensating players from places we're able to put now on other sports like gymnastics and tennis. So, and those athletes, they're going to figure out a way to be, rewarded, or, they're going to be some sort of a way for them to get funding, because now football and basketball, programs fund all athletic departments in basically all of universities. And it's so funny. If institution that benefited the most from this broken system at the end of the day, do you know what institution I'm thinking about?
Trying to think.
The U.S. Olympic
The Olympics.
The Olympics.
Yeah, the IOC.
Not the IOC.
The U.S. Olympic Committee, the USOC.
Yeah, the ESOC. Yeah, the U.S. Olympic Committee. They were the ones who benefited the most because they had the NCAA put in the shield, creating this, great programs of swimming, gymnastics, and making America great at the Olympics. I'm wondering down the years if football and basketball really pushes, this new way of compensating players and getting the football money into football and basketball money into basketball and not sharing all over other sports, maybe even U.S. will downgrade. Will be worse in Olympics. I know I'm
I mean,
speaking way ahead of time, but it's not a crazy idea.
well, what's going to be interesting here is how does this affect Title IX? Because remember, Title IX requires that most public universities have an equal amount of sports for men and women. There's a reason why a lot of schools don't have baseball, right? Because like they have like football, right? But it's only a men's sport. Like you don't have that a women's equivalent. So like when women have softball, then you have to even it out with the football, so you don't have baseball. That's the case here at UTC in Chattanooga. Um, but if the money isn't there for those sports, then how do you reconcile that? Because really, no women's sport right now makes enough money. There's athletes in women's sports that make money, like the Caitlin Clark makes money, Angel Reese makes money, the chick from LSU, the gymnast girl, Olivia Dunn, she makes money. But
Yeah,
like,
but the money she's making, let's be honest, not because of the talents on gymnastic, is because of her beauty. Let's be honest. She's more of influencer than an athlete.
I mean, I can't
I mean,
necessarily argue with
because,
that.
because
I
like,
think okay, like Caitlin Clark, I think legitimately makes it off of her talent. Like
yes,
people are
yes,
watching Iowa basketball because she is electric.
yes.
But like outside of that, it's you're kind of right, especially when it comes to like gymnasts. A lot of that comes down to the influencer right now. I think there's some gymnasts out there that can make a living based off their talent, right? Because like especially in an Olympic year like this, because there's going to be obviously the Gabby Douglases of the world and the Allie what was her name, Shipman, I think, was at the last. I'm not really a gymnast expert, but
at the end of the day, literally with this new mentality in Title IX, that you basically reduce your college athletic department into two men's sports and two women's sports, and that's it. So men tennis gone, men's soccer gone, because like then you probably would still have two women's sports like softball and women's basketball. Then it would be all four: football, softball, men's and women's basketball, and that's it. Then
for sure,
you
yeah.
get around Title IX, but then the money that you spending on the programs, that you are able to do it because you don't have to compensate players, you just give scholarships. Then the resource is going to have to get shifted around.
And you almost have to wonder too, how much will this all expose universities? Because I feel like a lot of universities just have ballooning administrative costs for no reason. And you have to wonder, like, if all of a sudden we're facing a situation where we have to divert extra funding to save our women's volleyball, our women's basketball team. And, a lot of these colleges, they've really pride themselves on diversity, on having those inclusions, on giving women opportunities. Because there's been a perception that for a long time, colleges didn't give women those opportunities, and they didn't. For a very, very long time. There's certain fields where you don't see a lot of women, like STEM, for example, in those fields. I just wonder, with everything that we've seen in these schools, all the programs, all the investments, there's so many like diversity coordinators and stuff like that. How can you reconcile all of that and then you cut women's sports because all of a sudden football isn't there to gravy train them?
Yeah. At the end of the day, money has to come from somewhere. And and universities were able to get around that because, again, of all the shield that the NCAA created. Because the NCAA has put up a villain, I guess it's partly the NCAA. The NCAA just created a shield that made the universities and college athletic departments comfortable into a to create this diversity illusion, but the money for that had to come from somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And I can only imagine, too, on the other end, if this goes the way I think it might, where like the NCAA basically gets stripped of all of its power. And let's think about the second part of this big news of the past week. The SEC and the Big Ten announced they have a partnership now where they're going to meet to kind of discuss how should we move college football forward. They're not saying they're not doing any specific actions yet. They're going to form a partnership, and a partnership in quotation marks. And here's what I want to see: screw the rest of college athletics, break away, and let's go AFC NFC with this, and give me a 40-team breakaway league. And that way, so we play 12 quality games every single year.
Nicholas Hill, you just literally described privatizing college football from state organization like the NCAA. What you literally describe as that. Privatizing something that's been putting it under the umbrella of a state socialist institution. You literally just did that, with what you just said, which, is SEC and Big Ten, making this merger and, making their sport big and not caring about all the other things they had to care about because of all the college athletics umbrella.
Oh, absolutely. And we've already begun to see this last year, right? Like we saw what happened to Washington State and Oregon State. And there's a lot of fans out there of a lot of different teams who probably think that wouldn't happen to my school. I'm telling you, if you're not in the SEC or Big Ten right now, or you're not one of the top teams in the ACC, like a Florida State, like a Clemson, like a Notre Dame, that will get grandfathered in because of how viable those brands are. There's a handful of them out there. Like North Carolina, I think, will get grandfathered in because of their basketball. Duke might get grandfathered in because of their basketball. But if you're like Wake Forest, if you're like, I'm trying to think of good, like Iowa State, if you're Kansas State,
Cincinnati,
you might get left behind.
And the decision that the committee made last year with Florida State, of course, now they're going to move to a 12-team playoff, but the same principle they did with Florida State is still going to be applied next season. So they are going to pick probably a 3-loss SEC team, probably over a 2-loss ACC team. I'm telling you.
Oh, easy. I bet they pick them over a 1-loss ACC team. In fact, what's going to be interesting because the system as it's set up right now is the top 6 conference champions. We only have 4 power conferences. Arguably, you could argue we really have 2. You have 2 SEC, Big Ten. You have 2, I would say, mid-tier ACC and the Big 12, and then the rest of them are the G5 because Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, well, I don't know how they're going to count Washington and Oregon State. I would say that just count them with the Mountain West schools. So there's going to be 2 G5 champions guaranteed a spot. And they will probably get absolutely pummeled in the first round of the playoffs. And you just got to wonder how long that system's going to stay. When you're going to probably have at least 4 or 5 teams from each, the SEC and the Big Ten, that will deserve to be in the playoffs over either one of them.
Yeah, the system is going to change, but the principle is still there.
And it's going to be painful. It's for a lot of teams. And look, it's easy for me to be excited for this because we root for Tennessee. We root for a college football powerhouse with one of the biggest budgets, one of the biggest stadiums, one of the biggest fan bases. I'm not worried about Tennessee being left behind and all this. I know they will be there, and I know at some form or fashion, whatever college football looks like in 5 to 10 years, Tennessee will be a big part of that. But I get it if you're like Wake Forest, if you're West Virginia, if you're Cincinnati. Why I would be nervous. I would be nervous if I were in their shoes. And I wasn't one of these major programs. But right now I'd be thinking, how do I angle to get into one of those 2 main conferences? Because otherwise, if you don't, it's done.
And also what makes the SEC and the Big Ten wants to expand more, they already did. They are happy with the teams that they have. They probably want some teams out if you really think about it. Like the Big Ten probably would not be probably Big Ten would have
The Big
relegated.
Ten would do anything to get Notre Dame. If Notre Dame came to the Big Ten and said, "We want to join," they would make sure they're in there tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. And the same
Or like
thing.
Florida State and Clemson show up to the SEC. SEC, please let us in. They'll be in.
Probably, yeah. But how about the teams that the conferences want to out? For example, Rutgers at the Big Ten. Probably Big Ten want Rutgers out. Same
Well, I
thing.
mean, if TV markets don't matter anymore, yeah, get rid of Rutgers.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
TV markets don't matter anymore, Nick. You have a conference comes from Washington State to Pennsylvania to you know. So I guess and also New Jersey football fans, they care about the Giants and the Jets. They don't care about Rutgers. He's not the same. The Northeast doesn't care about college football like the Southeast. You know that, Nick. So
yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten already have the markets that they wanted. They don't need New Jersey. They have Southern California. They have Washington State. They have Ohio, Michigan. Those are good markets already. They don't need New
You have
Jersey.
DC. You have DC with Maryland,
Yeah, yeah. So, Rut-
Chicago.
yeah, I, yeah. It's the same principle. Yeah, Northwestern and Rutgers. Yeah, you technically have Chicago, New Jersey, New York, but not
Here's the
really.
thing: they they're not like Vandy in the SEC, right? Like in terms of pure performance, like let's get rid of Vandy, right? But like I think Vanderbilt, as a private university, has a value because you know there's like certain things that Vanderbilt doesn't have to disclose as a private school that all these public schools do, and it's long been rumored that the SEC hides stuff through them. So that's why they get to stick around.
Yeah. But nevertheless, I think there's going to be some major shifts until the end of the decade for college athletics in the United States of America, and this is going to even affect the way the U.S. performs in the Olympics. I'll tell you, Nick.
I
Watch
can see
out.
that for sure.
I watch out, Nick. The United States are going to have some fallout in the Olympics in the years ahead because of these changes. I know it's gone crazy, but I'll like I was telling you in 2018, 2019 about this, the same thing I'll tell you now.
Oh, I'm going to agree. I think basketball is not going to win the gold this year. I think our culture of AAU is going to catch up with us, and these other countries are going to be more team oriented than the U.S. because of just the way we teach players how to play.
I know we're gonna move from college basketball, but the last point is, with basketball, it's not fair if you really think about that. A player played professionally overseas uh, comes to the draft in a class with college athletes. Of course, you want to pick a pro instead of a amateur player.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be fascinating. And next week, February 13th, will be the trial in Greenville, Tennessee, or at least the first hearing on this case. We'll see what happens. One final note in college football before we move on. I was going to talk about this real quick. Former Vol Gerald Mincy, left tackle for the Vols this year. He transferred over to Kentucky, and he decided to take some shots at Tennessee after going to Lexington. He basically was complaining about the fans, saying that the fans were too negative, and that he said, quote, to Kentucky media, "We're going to bust Tennessee in the mouth and restore the standard back over here, and that I love the underdog role, and I cannot wait to go to Neyland and bust them in the mouth," despite the fact that he wasn't very good and that he went to a school that has beaten Tennessee 3 times in the last 40 years.
You were there for one of those times, but yeah, I think you want to definitely impress your new fan base and talk shit about the team that you left, but definitely not a smart move. Definitely Like I'm gonna talk about that in the Brazilian part of it, but in sports you should talk less and do more.
Yeah, and I think honestly the point that got me where he was talking trash about John Campbell, one of his teammates, saying that he was getting on him for letting a strip sock happen in the third Saturday in October, and he called him. He said, "Lol, you suck. I feel bad for my little bro this year." Like, I. It's a bold move when you come to Neyland Stadium, right? November 2nd, you got to play James Pierce and Tyra West and are really, really good front seven. All I got to say is F around and find out to Mr. Mincy. As the Kentucky basketball team found out on Saturday night, because we went into Rep Arena. Of course, earlier in the week, we had a pretty rough game against a really good South Carolina team, which is now top 15. But we came back Saturday night and dropped 103 in Rupp Arena. And it wasn't even Dalton Connect that led the way. Zakai Ziegler had 26 points, 13 assists. And Josiah Jordan James, who had been on a milk carton throughout this early parts of the season, had 26 himself. Yeah, this was one of the more fun regular season games I've seen in a long time. And I get it. It's just a regular season game. It isn't March. But it feels so good to win in Rupp Arena.
Oh yeah, and the way they did it, scoring over 100 points, fans leaving the game even before the game was over. So definitely it was a historic performance. But again, hopefully they do that next month.
Yes, absolutely. But, for Coach Cal, Kentucky fans, I mean, they've been on a rough run here. They fell all the way to number 21. They've lost, I believe, 4 out of 5. A lot of their fans want Coach Cal gone. They are done with him. They think basically that the defense is non-existent. The offense is unimaginative. How much pressure is Cal under heading into March?
I mean, he even skipped his own radio show. I mean, he knows how much he's in under pressure. And again, they just got to rip the band-aid off. I mean, first of all, whoever signed that lifetime contract should be, ostracized. I mean, I really don't understand of a concept of a lifetime contract of a sports organization anyhow. Of course you hope that you have built a successful, program, a successful sports team in many years. But as we saw, like literally this month, on one way or the other, is not something not a lifetime. Not even like, for example, Nick Saban did not have a lifetime contract, and he deserves way more than Coach Cal. Bill Belichick got busted, even though he's the GOAT. So Kentucky should just rip the band-aid, find a way to do like get rid of a contract. What is the term? Not bailout.
They're going to buy him out. They're going to have to buy him out.
Buyout.
I tell you who Kentucky should go hire, Chris Beard.
Yeah, but first they're gonna have to find a way to buy out the contract. Should be Coach Cal. Let's discuss a plan. For you to just leave. Because at the end of the day, it's not sustainable to have this weird relationship, because it feels like that relationship where both parts don't like each other, but they have to live in the same place, and they don't trying to find efforts to move somewhere. They just have to. One of them needs to rip the band-aid and go somewhere else.
Right. Now, I will be fair to them. They did beat Vanderbilt today, 109-77 in Nashville. But Vandy is 6-16, and I think Jerry Stackhouse himself is on the way out soon. But yeah, but that was a rough one, a rough loss for Kentucky at home. We do have a rematch on March 9th. For the Vols, we have LSU, one of the worst teams in the SEC, at home tomorrow night, and Texas A&M at home on Saturday. We're going to be favored in both of these. I think we've learned from South Carolina last week. I think, when you look at this team, apparently Don Connect called a meeting with Josiah Jordan James and Santiago Vescovi and told them both, hey, don't stand around and wait on me to save the day. Like, we all have to win as a team. And because I think this team maybe was becoming a little too reliant on okay, DK is going to save us.
Great posture by him. NBA team should look at that and be like, "Hey, that guy's a leader. I want like what he did. That was a great move. And if I am an NBA scout, I will look with that attitude plus his performance on the court. Something. Whoa, this guy's deserves at least to be considered highly considered in the NBA draft."
Yeah, and Sakai Ziegler as well. Rick Barnes said in the post game Saturday that he really urged him to take a more vocal leadership role, and he did. You could just tell that team was clicking. On Saturday or last Tuesday, I really think I think they underestimated Carolina. Carolina is a really good team, but two, they were looking ahead to Saturday, and you can't have that happen. So I think they learned a really good lesson. I think it'll be a really good loss for them to learn from. And I think they'll win both games this week against LSU and A&M.
Yeah, I think Tennessee is in a good trajectory. They're gonna get probably in the March Madness, but at the same time, it's gonna be this team feels more like a stronger leadership, and this is
Right.
important for a really big moment like March Madness.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about making the tournament. I'm thinking about seeding. Can we make a run at the one seed? Is the question. So because I think there's a chance because there's all these teams going to lose. Like North Carolina tonight lost to Clemson. Kansas lost to Kansas State last night. And those were two teams ranked ahead of us. Like the taking is there for a one seed. Like we could, especially with as tough of a schedule as we have played. As we have some really tough teams coming up towards the end of this month and early next month. Because we got rematches against Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, and we have to play Auburn. So it's going to be a very we'll have our chance to get a one seed here, which we've never done in school history, and that would be pretty cool. Also, just real quick thing about the Diamond. Actually, next weekend the baseballs return back to the Diamond. I saw they tied for the lead in All Americans in the country, so a lot of excitement there in the Diamond. But as Texas and OU get ready to come to the SEC next year, the SEC baseball tournament is going to expand to 16 teams instead of the current 10-team format in Hoover. And I think this is a terrible move.
Yeah, but I guess the new trend is expand playoffs. I guess March Madness don't need to because they're so large, but all the other like football did that, and now baseball is doing the same thing. Is get more teams into the dance.
I don't know how they're going to fit the entire tournament in. With as much as it rains and and how long baseball takes, I just don't see how this is going to be very practical. But could be completely wrong. Additionally, we got back to the racetrack, kind of a weird situation in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. There's an atmospheric river heading over California. Tons of flood, tons of mudslides out there. Really bad storm hitting California right now. But on Saturday before that hit, NASCAR did get in their preseason race effectively. And Denny Hamlin, the star of the Netflix show right now that is trending about NASCAR, getting a lot of new fans to the sport, which I think is fantastic. Could be our version of Drive to Survive. He got the dub, got the win, and Denny Hamlin, he has a lot of wins, he has a lot of prestige, but he will be searching for his first title still as a driver. Will this be the year he does it? We'll wait and see. Of course, Daytona 500, the Super Bowl of racing is next week. And, contrary to previous reports, as we transition into soccer, we thought the FIFA World Cup was going to be in AT&T Stadium in Dallas to give the Cowboys a chance to see what a title actually looks like. But they can't even win the rights to the World Cup final.
I thought the same thing. Yeah, that's true because the FIFA announced last Sunday that the winner, the stadium that was chosen, that was crowned to be the final for the final of the World Cup is MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford in New Jersey. So I think it made sense. I thought it was going to be California like in 1994, but I guess now they want to put in the East Coast because it's a better time zone for Europeans. And also is New York. Definitely New York. New York. It's a bigger brand, even though technically it's not in New York. It's in New Jersey, but you get it. It's really close. It's a 30-minute drive to Manhattan. So the opener is going to be also, it made sense, in the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City on June 11th. Also, Estadio Azteca, historical place, hosted 2 World Cup finals in 1970 and 1986. But at least AT&T Stadium is going to host one semifinal. The other one, Nicholas Hill, is going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on July 15th, the day before my birthday. So, that's probably going to be,
better start saving now to go.
yeah, better start saving, because a World Cup semifinal is definitely do not miss event. Third place is going to be hosted in Miami. Great fitting place. Non-relevant game in a city that has a lot of non-relevant games. So I believe the United States also know where they're going to play their first 3 games. 2 in Los Angeles at SoFi Stadium, June 12 and June 15. And the second game is going to be at Seattle on June 19. Canada group stage is going to be Toronto, and then both in Vancouver. And Mexico is going to play 2 games in Mexico City and another one in Zapopan.
Okay, I got to go a little bit of a rant here. Why are we playing their games only on the West Coast?
I guess FIFA want to put teams on like regions. So, for example, the United States, they're on the West Coast region, so they only have to go Seattle and LA. They don't have to go to the East Coast, since it's gonna
But
be.
they're a host country. Like, I think we should get at least one group game in the East.
I guess that's fair. I mean, because there's gonna be 12 groups with 4 teams apiece, so it's kind of hard to split 104 matches across 16 cities and 3 countries, and kind of make the logistic work. So that's why they have to concentrate in regions like West Coast, Central, and East Coast.
Oh, I guess I can understand that, but that's kind of disappointing because I feel like most of the U.S. population's in the East, and obviously wherever the U.S. plays is going to be huge, and obviously we can all fly, I guess, to wherever this are. Although I can only imagine how much a U.S. World Cup match is going to cost to get in the door.
Yeah. Atlanta is going to host 8 games. It's going to be June 15th, 18th, 21, 24, and 27. 1 round of 32 game on July 1st. 1 round of 16 on July 7th. And a semifinal that we already talked about on July 15th. So
honestly,
8
my
games.
strategy, it might be to find like the cheapest group game, because we might get something like, I don't know, Senegal versus like I don't know, the Ivory Coast.
South Korea.
South
Senegal and South Korea, something like that. That's literally what I did back in 2014. I remember when the tickets were available, I looked for the cheapest one, was Belgium, South Korea at Corinthians Stadium, and I got 4 tickets. And then I remember the other game, my friend frantically calling me at 1 a.m. and say, I have tickets for Netherlands and Chile also. So I went to 2 games in the World Cup when it was in Brazil back in 2014. But
and for people who have never been to one, what is it like? How is it compared to other sporting events?
It's a very Americanized one. It's a lot of security in the area. They definitely check you if you have tickets even before you get close to the stadium. It felt like it didn't have anything specific. Definitely, of course, it changes over the years, and it's going to be 12 years apart. But at the same time, I think it felt like an American kind of sporting event. So. And again, so there's going to be 3 regions. There's going to be the West Coast, Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. The central one with Guadalajara, Mexico City, Monterrey, Houston, Dallas, and Kansas City. And the east part, Atlanta, Miami, Toronto, Boston, Philadelphia, and New York, New Jersey. That's where the regions that I was telling you about.
It's going to be really fascinating to see what this does for soccer in the U.S. Because 1994 really brought soccer on the map in the U.S., at least in the modern era. Now 2026, I think, has the potential to make it explode.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of soccer exploding, I don't know if you saw, but Inter Miami got destroyed by Al Nasser in a friendly game last week, and Messi only played 5 minutes at the end of the game. Cristiano Ronaldo was injured, but nevertheless, 6-0, a Saudi Arabian team beating an American team. It
I'm
was,
sure some Cristiano Ronaldo stands are running around bragging about it.
yeah, oh yeah, they are. Messi came into the game with at the 88th minute, I guess, due to a contract or something. But yeah, it was an interesting
And
friendly
also
game.
too, like the situation with Messi as well, like in Hong Kong, like not playing at all, and like I know people in Hong Kong basically rioted over it.
Of course, because they probably didn't. Well, there were not cheap tickets, and they expect to see, a superstar, not Inter Miami. They don't care about Inter Miami. They don't care about the team. They care about Messi. They want to see Messi. They don't want to see Inter Miami. You know, that's why it's fair they felt angry about it.
Oh, absolutely. They don't deal with that load management crap. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but in any case, keeping on the soccer train, outside of what we saw in England, of course, with Liverpool being our Arsenal, yeah, our Arsenal being Liverpool and all that. Down in Brazil, Corinthians continues to fall apart, don't they?
Oh my God, it's a train wreck. It's a train wreck. They fired their coach Mano Menezes, which was like a month into, probably 40 days into when to be as a head coach of Corinthians. But definitely losing 4 games in a row, losing a derby game at home, and be on the relegation zone of the state championship has something to do with it. The buyout is going to be according to some estimate, 9 to 12 million reais, which is a big buyout. And then Corinthians, hear that, was trying to hire a coach that couldn't coach Corinthians in the state championship. Really, Nick. Corinthians wanted to try to hire San Bernardo's head coach, Marcio Zanardi, but according to the rules of the Sao Paulo Soccer Federation, a coach who coaches into like first division in the São Paulo State Championship, like the one that you just mentioned, he cannot coach any other team if he gets fired or if he resigns. So Corinthians was potentially looking into a coach that couldn't coach the team into the tournament they are playing in right now. I'm not joking.
So, like, okay, so if you have this rule, then why wouldn't you just wait until the end of the tournament?
Yeah. Or and I mean, it was the stupid. He wasn't a coach worth waiting. I mean, he's an uprising coach who did a good job at San Bernardo. I mean, he promoted the team to the third division nationally. Did some good campaigns in the São Paulo State Championship, but I don't. I think it was stupid. If he could have coached, of course, was interesting hire. Like it was a young coach who deserves a chance, but due to this rule, it's stupid even to consider. But according to some new reports now, Corinthians looks like found a coach, Portuguese coach Antonio Ferreira. Antonio Oliveira actually. He was coaching at Cuiabá, a team from the first division nationally in the state of Mato Grosso. Corinthians back into Portuguese coaching hire after the Vitor Pereira debacle, which now suing Corinthians for working compensation. He didn't get it. But Corinthians now been a mess. Really been like Corinthians hire a player and only now was signed into the league. It's a mess. Corinthians a mess. Corinthians fans should really worry about the season. It's not gonna there. I don't think Corinthians gonna win any title this year. And watch out for the relegation zone. I think the Paulista relegation zone, they're gonna get out of it. I wouldn't worry about it. There's way worse teams. They're gonna get some 2-3 wins to get out of it. Maybe even qualify for the quarterfinals because it's such a disparity tournament. But in the Brasileirão, in the Brazilian National Championship, look what happened to Santos last year. Corinthians in the same track.
Man, that's a brutal thing to think about, especially with them being one of the most prominent brands. And you just have to
Yeah,
wonder, like, if they could just settle down as a board. Like you said, they're switched presidents, and everyone's constantly fighting, and they can't
yeah,
accept a loss ever. It's just, as I
yeah.
said, my over from the outside. Sometimes you gotta let a coach struggle, and it seems like Brazilian teams, time and time again, don't let their team struggle at all.
Yeah, and I don't and Mano Menezes I think is the least to be blamed for the 4 game losing streak. I mean, he lost half of the roster of the starting 11 last year, and only now Corinthians new signees are getting in. So basically, you lose half of your starting roster last year, and now you're getting new players. So you basically Corinthians last year's team of Corinthians was bad. So you lose half of the good players, good or bad. It's hard to get this new team going. So I mean Corinthians is gonna be a train wreck this year. I'll tell you. Who's not gonna be a train wreck of this year was already crowned the champion. São Paulo won the Super Cup, the Community Shield of Brazil. Tie nil to Palmeiras on a regular time, and then penalties bid Palmeiras. A deserved champion. São Paulo feels. I mean, they're not gonna be like a dominated team like Palmeiras, but I think they have some shots. They lost their coach to the Brazilian national team, Dorival Jr., but Thiago Carpini is really the face of this new young coaching generation. And I think São Paulo can really do some damage. And I think they at least gonna win one title, maybe the state championship, maybe another Brazilian Cup, but I think they're gonna do some damage. Palmeiras lost not only the title in the Brazilian Super Cup, but the ability to play in their stadium, because Allianz Park right now is not allowed to host any soccer games because their artificial turf is ruined. It's really bad. The fake grass is sticking in the players' cleats, and a lot of players are getting injured because of this. And even the São Paulo State Federation intervene and kind of forbid the games to happen there. So Palmeiras in a legal battle with the company that build the put the grass there to get new grass. So Palmeiras is in is in a tricky situation where they literally cannot play in their own stadium because of the grass of the
Man,
artificial
it's just
turf.
unacceptable. I
And
mean,
it's funny. Oh, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
to not have appropriate grass when you're one of the top clubs in Brazil is unacceptable. Like, you have to be able. That's so simple. It's grass.
I guess, and so funny. 2 years ago, this artificial turf that Palmeiras put in was so praised by everybody. It was like it felt like real grass, and I myself also checked that and saw how good of an artificial turf they had 2 years ago. But it's not the case anymore. I guess the big amount of concerts there took a toll on it, or maybe the lack of lack of maintenance. But and it was funny that not only the Palmeiras stadium but Palmeiras training ground artificial turf is also not good. I myself saw that when Rio Branco went to the Palmeiras training ground, and the same situation that happened to the grass artificial turf at the stadium happened in a training ground, and Rio Branco players were not happy about it. So we saw firsthand this really bad artificial turf.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we talked about this last week a little bit about how like artificial turf is rare, and it's like we had 2 in the U.S. We were meant as humans to play on actual grass. We need to play on grass, not turf, but grass.
And I know grass is harder to conserve, and I'm seeing this firsthand as I work at Rio Branco, how hard it is to keep the grass good. It depends on the weather and on other factors, but if you are a sports team, that should be your main focus as well. But yeah, and in terms of state championship, nothing big happening. Santos doing really good right now, top of the league. São Paulo won the Brazilian Super Cup, and I guess in Brazil right now, still too early to say, but the only thing I take is Corinthians going to have a really hard season.
Mm. Yes, I mean it's really unfortunate. I'll be very curious to see if they're able to avoid Santos' fate. But tell me about what happened in the Rio Bronco game on
Oh
Saturday.
yeah, that's true. Rio Branco tied 0-0 against Vossen. They pull up, I'll say, like a 2021 Ole Miss tactic, which is follow the time, kind of break the game. We call here kachimba, and they really play defense, and they were able to keep the tie. Rio Branco plays tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Brazil time against Jabaquara, which has lost both games. And, I think it's going to be a really big candidate to relegation. So Rio Branco should win, not easily, but should win tomorrow and get back on the top of the league. And I hope, and Rio Branco is going to have some changes in the lineup tomorrow. Even newspaper reporters are asking me about it, say, you'll see tomorrow, there's going to be some changes.
I'm very excited to see how that goes. I know Wabacar was a big team, a big obstacle in their way last year.
Oh,
So,
that's true. Jabaquara did some damage, defeated Rio Branco when they play in the second round in Santos. I was there. The 3-3 crazy game when they tied in a penalty kick on the last minute. Yeah, but
oh my God, yes, I remember that one because I think I was at work. Because I remember there's one game that was really crazy, and that was that. Because weren't y'all down like 2-1? You'll come back, make it 3-2, and then the penalty gives them the chance to come back and make it 3-3.
that's exactly the team that Rio Branco's gonna play tomorrow. Exactly
Because
that.
there were 3 crazy finishes. Well, really, there were 4 because y'all had the comeback at
Calleiras.
Karis. Y'all beat one team at like the 90th minute at home. I can't remember who that was.
Amparo, the 2-0, down 2-0, 3-2 in the 90th minute.
Yes, and then of course you had that game, and then you had the
The
one with the
Penapolense
fines.
miracle, the
Yeah,
Penapolense miracle, and the 3-3 at home that was in the penalty at the last minute. Yeah, that's true. So
as I said, y'all had just like one of the craziest seasons I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, probably this season is going to be more stable, I hope. But Broncos is a little bit of pressure. Broncos have is big favorite tomorrow, and if they win, of course, if fans are going to be happy and all. But if there's going to be a tie or a loss, a lot of criticism going to come up because this game should be Rio Branco to take it.
Absolutely. Hopefully the Tigres can get it done. Vamos.
Yeah.
Tigre. But
Tigres.
Go Tigers. But in any case, that's all the time that we have for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here, episode 116. That's Gus Tomazeli from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee of the United States. Happy Super Bowl week, everyone. Of course, when we come back next week, we'll talk about who hoists the Lombardi Trophy, the latest on Tennessee NCAA. And we'll start shifting our focus to college basketball, more soccer. The sports, even though football season's almost done, the sports never stops. And we'll be here to cover whatever is going on because this is the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. Y'all have a great night.